This is To the Point with Michael Williams.
Good morning. Election controversy, Democratic and Republican perspectives today, and new warnings about COVID in our community. First, newly re-elected local Democratic Congresswoman Lois Frankel. I asked her about President Trump's refusal thus far to concede his race to President-elect Joe Biden.
Michael, always good to be with you. Well, let me start by saying that this was a historic win for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. As for Mr. Trump, I can understand the loser feeling disappointment, sorrow, even anger. But what we're seeing with Trump is a self-indulgent temper tantrum. I try to talk a tongue twister. A self-indulgent temper tantrum of epic proportions that endangers our democracy, our security, and our reputation as a country.
Congresswoman, Republicans are arguing close races in a number of key states. The scrutiny is absolutely warranted and deserved.
Well, one thing I think we can all agree on is that every vote should count. But I think there was a recent survey by one of a very reputable newspaper, actually more than one, in contact with election officials in every state, and there is absolutely no evidence of any kind of fraud. But with that said, I believe that no matter how many times they count the votes, Joe Biden is going to be the winner. And I think what's more important is that Mr. Trump allows now a very smooth transition of government, and that he allows Joe Biden to get the information that he needs for that to happen.
Congresswoman, Republicans are also arguing, I've heard this, they said, listen, for the last 4 years, Democrats have called President Trump an illegitimate president. Don't suddenly expect us with a close race to say, there's no problems, nothing at all going on here, and to suddenly accept us. What do you say to that argument?
Well, here's what I would say. Joe Biden had, as I said, an historic win, got the most number of votes ever in the country for president. And let's also say that Donald Trump got a lot of votes too. And we clearly have what is a divided country. So I think what's important right now is for all of us to say, what is the common good? What are the values we have in common? And we need to turn our attention to getting out of what is a horrendous crisis, and that is this COVID pandemic, so that we can get back to a normal life.
I want to talk about COVID in a moment. Final thought on this topic. Michael Beschloss, the noted presidential historian, said, quote, "We have not seen any president in history lose re-election, refuse to concede, defeat, and take actions that threaten the abuse of presidential power to keep himself in office." He went on to say, "Here, Donald Trump is yet again in a historical category of his own, and this time it is ominous for democracy." Do you think we're going to have a peaceful transfer of power? You talked earlier in the interview about your concerns. What are your mid to longer term concerns about democracy, about accepting outcomes, about where this country is and is going?
Well, I do think this country is stronger than any one individual. Donald Trump is making it times are tough, and he's made it worse. But I do think eventually there will be a transition of power. We are very fortunate that Joe Biden has a lot of experience, having been vice president for 8 years, having been in the Senate. He will put very good people around him who actually believe in science. And so I think eventually, January 20th, I feel pretty good. That'll be a day that Joe Biden gets off to a good start.
Congresswoman, I suspect part of this next answer will tie into COVID because it so dominates our lives. But I'd like you to talk a little bit about the action plan that you hope President-elect Biden, after January 20th, when all this is settled, if it's settled the way that most expect it will be at this point, though Republicans watching will disagree. But assuming that we have President Biden after January 20th, what's the action plan you want to see him tackle first that'll mean the most to your constituents and their needs right now?
Well, I think number one, we've got to take steps to crush this virus. And I feel good that Joe Biden is now surrounding himself with a task force, a COVID task force that will be science-based. And they will come up with strategies to reduce this spread, to get it under control, to get a vaccine out when it's finally approved, to get treatments out when they are approved, and try to get us back to some normality. That's number one. Number two, what we have to do immediately is a COVID relief package, because people are still suffering greatly. They can't pay, they're out of work, they can't pay their bills, they are threatened with homelessness. Some people can't even put food on the table. Our local and state governments have severe shortfalls in their budget. So we have to get a relief back, financial relief back to businesses and to people. And as important, or even more important, we've got to make sure that we have the testing and contact tracing and rapid, quick, reliable testing all over this country. Again, that's going to help us get this virus under control.
And it's only part of the answer, but what do you say to those? Masks have become a political debate as much as a scientific health debate. What do you say to those of your constituents, the ones who voted for you and the ones who didn't, about this debate over masks?
Well, I hope that once this election period is passed, that masks are no longer, a political prop. I think of all the damage that Donald Trump did to this country, and he did a lot, probably the most damage he's done of recent days is how he's conducted his lack of efforts to getting this COVID under control, and the disdain for mask wearing. Look, nobody likes to wear a mask. And everybody wants to get back to normal. We want to go back to work, get our children back to school, start having more social interactions with the people we care about, with our friends. No matter what political party, and that's how people are feeling today. And yes, it is tiring to go out, to have to remember to put that mask on, and sometimes it's hard to breathe and whatever. But I think, at least with Joe Biden, we're going to have a really good, fine role model. And he will look for strategies that will encourage people to wear their mask, because right now, folks, that is the way to stop the spread, is social distancing, wearing your mask, washing your hands. I mean, it sounds so simple, but that is really the way to do it.
Congresswoman, with the package you'd like to see, and of course the House has tried and the Senate has said no thus far, do you think we can get to a package that in your mind will include more direct stimulus for your constituents, more direct help for businesses to get paychecks and paycheck help, long-term unemployment benefits? Is that realistic in our divided Congress?
Well, the House has passed at least two bills to do that. That are been sitting on the desk of the Senate president. But people are suffering all over this country. It's not just in what they call the blue state, the red state. Joe Biden has made it clear we're not going to talk about blue states and red states anymore. We're going to talk about the United States. People are out of work everywhere. People are getting sick everywhere. People need financial help everywhere. Small businesses are the backbone of our economy. They are suffering everywhere. So it seems to me that my colleagues on the Republican side, that their phones must be ringing off the hooks like mine is, from people who are desperate. So I know that the Democrats are going to be pushing hard for a relief package. I know that is a top priority of Joe Biden. And I'm hoping that he has a relationship with Mitch McConnell that's going to help us move that. And who knows, we'll see what happens in the Georgia Senate races. If Democrats take back the Senate, it'll obviously be much easier to move that package.
Congresswoman, last question. One of your colleagues, Representative Stephanie Murphy, Democratic colleague in the House from Florida, said, and a member of the centrist Blue Dog Coalition said, quote, I think the Democratic Party, which lost seats in the House to Republicans, she said, I think the Democratic Party needs to clearly push we're not supportive of ideas like socialism or defunding the police or anti-Semitism. She went on to say this playing footsie with socialism is not going to win over most of America. Do you agree with that assessment? And where do we go from here with the fight within the party?
Well, I mean, I think I know most of my colleagues. I don't really know who's she's talking about playing footsie with socialism. I mean, it's sort of outrageous. I know Donald Trump campaigned calling Joe Biden a socialist, but isn't that ridiculous? We've seen him in public office for 40 years, and we know that's not true. Listen, I think it's the pointing of fingers right now, the moderates versus the progressives versus the conservatives, that's not really going to get us anywhere. We have major problems to try to tackle in this country. Let's look at what we all agree on. We all agree we need to try to get back to normal. So we have to figure out how to do that. And I do not think our constituents appreciate the name calling and the finger pointing. They want us to roll up our sleeves and get to work. And that's what I plan to do.
A Republican perspective on the race, next on To the Point.